Okay. We can bring the meeting, the Santa Monica Planning Commission meeting to order. It is 6:01 on September the 17th. Let's rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim, would you like to join, lead the pledge? Sure. Right hand to the heart. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you like to take roll?
Commissioner Fresco? Here. Commissioner Lambert? Here. Commissioner Landris?
Here.
Commissioner Chaco?
Here.
Commissioner Reese?
Present.
Commissioner Wasserman?
Here.
Chair Hamilton?
Here. Okay. We are ready to proceed with the planning director's report.
Okay. Is it up on the screen?
Just our new planning director.
Yes.
I think
that's
some
right.
congratulations are in order.
I always thought of you that way, Jim.
We understood the assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ross is the new Jing. Congratulations.
Yeah. The new temporary Jing.
And Michelle is the new Heidi.
Yeah, it's the new- yeah. So yeah, let's start there. Yeah. Just a welcome to, I think, some old but new faces as we all settle into our new roles. And thank you for the commission's support. So with my promotion to director, Ross Furman will be acting planning manager. He'll be the liaison, the main liaison to the commission. Ethan is still here. With Heidi Von Tongen moving into interim city attorney, Michelle Hugard will be sitting with the Planning Commission. You might see Heidi pop in from time to time as, matters arise and things like that, but we're your Planning Commission crew.
Welcome again.
Yeah. Just to look at the upcoming commission agenda. So the October 1st meeting has been canceled, so we'll have one meeting in October, which is October the 15th. There'll be 2 resolutions of intention around the safety element and what we're calling kind of the comprehensive code update, largely centered around economic recovery, but there's a few items, in there. It's a little bit of a cleanup as well. And we're trying to kind of gather everything into a bucket to bring forward to the commission later this fall and into the council earlier in 2026. We have the draft review of the local hazard mitigation plan, and then also a map at 1527 17th Street. Upcoming on ARB, actually the ARB met just this past Monday to review a housing project at 1931 Wilshire, and then October 6th, we have this is generally a tentative agenda because it's a little bit a ways away, but 1437 Lincoln and 1399 are tentatively scheduled on that agenda, and 2901 Santa Monica Boulevard. All those are housing projects. On the Landmarks Commission's agenda for October 13th, their October 13th meeting, in addition to a STOA for 1125 18th Street, I will note that that designation was appealed to the City Council, so it'll be that appeal hearing will be coming forward. 26 Arcadia Terrace, the landmark constructor of merit designation, and a C of A at 451 Santa Monica Boulevard. Council has been busy since the commission last met, so just catch you up on updates. At their August 12th meeting, maybe just items of note, there was a Mass Timber Accelerator grant. This is led by OSC. What it is it funds kind of grants to 5 potential designers to sort of pilot, and kind of help city staff understand. It provides like technical assistance essentially to understand how mass timber works in design. The Virginia Avenue rehab project 2033 2101 Virginia Avenue. That was a loan approved by council on that issue, and I think has been a long-standing issue. It's good to see that come to resolution. And then there was a presentation, the council adopted the creation of the AHPP Offsite Affordable Housing Pilot Incentive Program, which is the subject of discussion on your agenda tonight. And then on September 9th, there were several items. There was an economic recovery IZO. This was really making permanent a lot of changes that have been in interim ordinance and become permanent in the downtown. So that's just kind of trying to bring those things to a close. All the changes we've made, over the last few years, largely around the promenade, but also in the downtown. The council approved the creation of the adult use cannabis program, including the social equity component. So I just want to recognize Tony Kim, the staff members, Shira Moak and Anna Fernandez, the key planners who worked on that. And that will launch, I believe it's November, right, Tony? I think is the intent. Yes, maybe. Won't hold them to that. And there was, I'll talk about the fiscal distress resolution in just a moment. The council also approved or reviewed, I guess, the proposal for an alternate means and methods process to achieve a single stair design for up to 6-story buildings and remove the high-rise requirement. So this was an item led by our fire department and also our building official to facilitate sort of, smaller scale housing and kind of see how that works out. And then there was the interim city attorney appointment. Coming back to the resolution of fiscal distress, I think there's been, a lot of discussion around that. And I think it's helpful to watch the meeting if you haven't had a chance to view it, watch the video, just to understand what it is and what it isn't. It's not a fiscal emergency, it's a tool to facilitate the city's recovery, as we go around looking at granting agencies, talking to legislators as a means to stabilize the city's financial situation. So I think it's very important, to see that. And if you haven't seen the slide deck in the video, it's probably helpful viewing, just, for your own understanding. September 30th, we will be returning to council with the AHPP offsite pilot program on a report back on where we are at with the program. So, projects that applied, what the response was, outreach that has occurred. We just held a roundtable today with affordable housing providers to get their feedback. I think it was an excellent session, really, really good debate and discussion, and also incorporating public comments that we received on parties that have commented and sort of sent us emails on, largely just asking about different aspects of largely probably around the gap financing, wanting to understand more about that. And certainly, like I said, we can talk about that today. Also on September 30th will be the triennial building code update. And bringing back the 2 map corrections. The council had originally tabled these at their May meeting at 2644 30th Street and 1331 Wilshire Boulevard. These were the map corrections for what were residential zones or portions of commercial buildings. So that will be coming back to council. And then just additional information in terms of department, just community development updates. We're going through, I would say as an organization with under new leadership, kind of a period of realignment across the organization. And it's a moment for us to really pause and be strategic about thinking through, how we proceed forward around 5 strategic objectives. First being organizational health, kind of making sure that we're building capacity within the organization, and also making sure that we're focusing the efforts on the really important things, to bring stability to the organization. So, one of the big moves is that the Economic Development Division, as part of this realignment, is moving into the city manager's office, and under the leadership of Peter James, who's our new deputy city manager. So that's something that is, happening or coming into fruition. So we wanted to provide, that update, and, community development will continue to have planning, building, and code enforcement. But I think as we move forward, there'll be, I think, more information provided around the city's game plan, and how we move forward, largely around the areas of public safety and capital improvements, economic recovery and opportunity, and also kind of, taking a look at how we deal with process streamlining around events and the like. But yeah, just wanted to share, as you may have been reading, there's a lot of change, that has been occurring, and just providing some context to all of that.
I have a question. What, do you have a question?
Go ahead.
Has there ever been any discussion about moving housing into planning?
That has not been discussed, no.
There's so much overlap between what we plan for housing and, the housing element, et cetera, that.
Yeah, certainly. And I think we work very closely with our colleagues in housing and human services, so it's been, I think it's a pretty seamless relationship, to be honest, in terms of the policymaking and, what happens on the implementation end.
And the director's gone now, right?
Yes, we are under recruitment for a new director of housing and human services.
And then my other question is, who's going to do Ross's job? Is there any chance of backfilling his position?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We will be doing that, yes. Yeah.
And then finally, I know when the HPP offsite program was discussed at council, there was some consternation about, what am I doing? Some consternation about its being an emergency, which I think could be justified based on all the state declarations of housing crisis, et cetera. Is the fact that we're looking at it tonight and it's going back to council on the 30th, meaning it's no longer like an emergency IZO, it's just an IZO?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall how it's returning, actually. I don't know if Michelle can shed more light on that. Yeah.
I will say Susan Cola, the Assistant City Attorney, will be here tonight to talk a little bit more during the study session for HPP. It's my understanding that it will come back as a first read and a second read, but she can clarify that when that item comes on tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to go to the 75-foot height high-rise. Is this citywide now, or is this just for single-stair buildings? Because this has been 25 years, I've heard us.
No, it'll be a citywide change.
Because that's a big deal that we've talked about. And for you to, I think what I heard you say was it was promoted by the fire chief and the building officials?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the issue was raised, it was studied by the fire department, and they found that removing that high-rise limit, it would not affect their ability to still
That's fantastic.
respond to
We have
any emergencies. Yeah.
versions of this commission have pushed for that for years.
Decades.
Yeah. So it's
Christopher Knight said that the only reason it was a 55-foot limit was that was how high fire department ladders went back when they wrote the code.
Brilliant.
Things change.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's great. Go ahead, Jacob.
Thanks. I had a question on the approval of the downtown business ordinance that we voted on. When it was presented to City Council, there was what we voted on, but then there was also some IZO amendments around pawn shops, I think. That caught me a bit off guard, and the council actually then stripped that out. I understand that we don't have to be presented IZOs, but how did it go from us not hearing about that to then council being presented with that?
I'm not remembering whether it was, but when interim zoning ordinances are amended, it is not required to be a formal recommendation of the Planning Commission. IZOs are an action of the council, and the extension of them are, so that's really, yeah.
Yeah, I guess unless you read the staff report very carefully, it made it appear as if the whole thing was recommended by our commission, whereas we did not go either way because it was not presented to us on the issue of pawn shops in downtown. So just for the future, I suppose.
Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback.
I have one other very small paperwork thing. I've always loved our digital planning director's report, so I don't have to frantically take notes while you speak. And I noticed, and I always take a picture of it, so if I forget something, I can just, and I noticed several of my commissioners also taking pictures of it. Maybe we could attach it to the public agenda,
Yeah.
too. And then
Yeah,
everyone could have it.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think there'd be an issue with doing that. Yeah.
It's the most beautiful report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Well, at this point, I'd like to invite our new city manager up to the podium.
Except he's not here.
Except he's not here.
Sure, yeah.
He's-
I'm just.
He's
I was
somewhere,
just-
he's
yeah.
somewhere that may or may not have been referenced in the planning director's report. I can't speak more to that. But I do have a planning commissioner's announcement.
Okay. Are we going to?
Go ahead and move on to the next.
Okay,
item,
we'll
yeah,
move on to
just-
the next. Okay. Do we have any announcements from the planning commissioners?
Yeah, yesterday I attended the circular economy event that the city put on at the Annenberg Community Beach House. It was excellent. Couple of takeaways that I think are relevant to us. The first is that our housing element did contain the request for innovative building materials, and I had some deja vu relative to our conversation about adaptive reuse when we think about just how difficult it is to salvage materials, to encourage people to do it, but it is happening on small scales. I would like to suggest that we schedule, and she's open to this, Shannon Perry, who's our Chief Sustainability Officer, for a presentation on the work that her office is doing as it intersects with our work, because I think there are some opportunities for us to look at whether there are ways our zoning code could encourage, the way that we use the zoning code to encourage adaptive reuse. Are there ways that our code could encourage a more circular economy? And in particular, maybe we could communicate some recommendations to other bodies that look at building standards and construction. Obviously, council just did the single story. One thing that comes to mind is that, as I complained yesterday, any attempt on our part to bring some of these principles into the building process potentially could be challenged as a constraint on housing development, and we need to try to get away from that kind of thinking. But there are probably some opportunities like kind of energy credits, figuring out ways that even inside the building envelope, letting people get, if they're salvaging bricks, give them some points that they could apply to something else. And I think it would be helpful to have that conversation with Shannon and with all of us. So it was an excellent conference. Thank you to the city team for putting it together. And I guess AIA was the other sponsor. They have some cool tech out there.
Well, thank you, Leslie.
This is not a planning commission directly related issue, but I'm actually having knee surgery on October 1st. So I will be, assuming I don't die on the table, I will be back in probably 6 weeks or so. And I was a little nervous because it's on Yom Kippur, and I'm not sure if that is a good sign or a bad sign. Someone told me all it means is you don't have a Jewish doctor.
Or the doctor will apologize if they do something.
If I die, he'll apologize. So I'll probably be out for about 6 weeks. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Nina.
I wanted to invite everybody to our public library this Saturday at 2 p.m. for the debut of the Mexican Presence in Santa Monica collection, which is a collection of photographs and videos that document the longstanding Mexican community in Santa Monica. And it will be a really great event, and you'll see videos and slideshows about the collection, and you'll get to meet a lot of the families who donated these incredible photos.
And what's the location of that?
It is upstairs in the community room at the main library.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a quick thank you to Ethan. If you notice at the bottom of the agenda now, there are 2 QR codes for the city's planning resources page and the page where you can subscribe to agendas on your email. And our email addresses now are on there as well. So thanks for that addition, and hopefully you can get the word out a little more.
Are there any other announcements? Okay. I'm actually going to be absent on the October 15th meeting.
So am I. So now it's the 4 of you.
3.
Well, three
no, we have 4.
gone and 4 present.
You're not going to be there? Oh, 4 will be here. I'm sorry.
Okay. Will the other 4 be present on the 15th?
So far,
Okay.
so good.
Okay.
I'm still standing.
Mitigate those hazards.
Should we, is Mr. Chi on his way in?
He is, yeah, he just called. He'll be here in just a moment. He was coming from a neighborhood meeting, so.
Okay. Okay, then what we'll do is we'll just move along, and when he comes in, we'll try to slot him in. How about that? Okay, if anyone here has a request to speak on an agenda item, it must be submitted on a speaker's request form, which we call a CHIT, and submitted to the commission secretary. All requests to address the commission on public hearing items must be submitted prior to the commission's consideration of the item. Do we have any public input on any matter not before? Okay, any chits? None, okay. Then we can move on to the consent calendar.
May I move? I would like to express great appreciation for the fact that this CUP is on the consent calendar. Thank you for doing that. There was some discussion about whether CUPs could be on the consent calendar. I'm thrilled to see it there. And with that enthusiasm, I move the consent calendar.
Second. A second.
A second, good. Okay. And any other items we want to remove from consent?
No, but I'd like to make a comment.
Okay,
I'm on a campaign to get the city to stop using superscript ordinals in their documents because they're for math, they're not for English language numbers, and it drives me nuts. It's a copy editing note.
Where are there super?
Everywhere, everything. I'm looking, there's not an ordinal on there, but like even sixth cycle housing element. Yeah, it's like when you put the TH in sixth up high. It's like a math thing.
It took 20 years for the high rise, so keep working.
yeah,
This is my new mission. It is my new mission.
High rise, you got
all
it.
right.
I just want to
Upper
note,
English.
on this, we do need ex parte disclosures on the 2001 Wilshire item, just because it's a
That's right.
judicial.
Are there any ex parte on item 7B? Okay. Any public comment on that item? Okay.
Sorry, just to Commissioner Fresco's point, I want to point out that the smaller TH provides for more density, and broadly, we're in favor of density, so.
Also, Windows does it automatically too, so, you know.
Because they don't speak English, they're mathematicians.
All right, we're ready for roll call.
Okay. We can just do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay.
No? Passes 7-0.
Okay. All right. The next item on our agenda is item 8A. It's the study session, the Parks and Rec Vision Plan.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
A question. I noticed that Ms. Cola has arrived, and we're going to be interrupting ourselves for Mr. Chi, and the study session is going to take quite a while. Would it make more sense for us to do 8B out of order
8B.
while she's here, because it's faster?
Well,
It's up to you, but I just,
let me check one more time. Do we have an ETA yet? I guess we can always just take an early
He said, yeah, he
5-minute
he
break.
said a minute. So,
Okay.
I think he was on his way back, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
In traffic.
Do you guys want to just take a break, or do you want to jump right in?
Let's jump in. I say we go. I like the.
Okay, then we'll skip ahead to item 8B, which is the AHP Offsite Incentive Pilot Program. Yeah, this is, I had an hour for this one.
It's written in stone.
No.
Okay. Good evening, Commission. Rachel Kwok, Environmental Planner. I'm here tonight to present to you a summary of the Off-Site Affordable Housing Pilot Program. So as you're all aware, this pilot program was adopted on August 10th. This was in response to council direction that was given on June 10th. That council direction was to create a pilot program that would allow approved housing projects that are kind of stuck in this, this phase that they haven't received the building permits to move out of that frozen phase and get them shovels into ground. So they wanted a program that would provide flexibility for these approved housing projects to move forward. Basically, this part of the program is consistent with Housing Element Program 2C, which called for a more flexible, affordable housing production program options to meet to meet affordable housing requirements. So this pilot program, what it does is it does increase the flexibility for approved housing projects to locate their affordable housing units instead of locating it on-site. They now have the option to move it off-site. They also have the option to pay an in lieu fee, which I will talk about. And they also have an option with it being located off-site. They also have flexibility in terms of timing. So in our traditional AHPP program, we require that the affordable housing project be constructed prior to the market rate project. Now in this case, if under this program, the market rate project could proceed first, and then the off-site affordable housing project could follow within the next 4 years, and with a 12-month extension. So as you all know, with the state density bonus law, it does require that housing projects provide their affordable units on site in order to be eligible for local or for density bonus. And this program, we would create our own version of local density bonus, which is basically matching up with what state density bonus law already provides. We're just basically giving them the same bonus, even if they're providing their affordable units off-site. Pursuant to council direction that was given on August 10th, they wanted to limit this pilot program to the first 1,000 units or until September 30th, whichever comes first. And they directed staff to come back to council on September 30th after talking to affordable housing providers, which Jing mentioned we did today. And I'll speak a little bit about that later on. Just to give some background on why this program was initiated by council or was directed by council. As you know, since the enactment of the HPP, more than 1,200 affordable units have been produced. And with our adoption of the 6 cycle housing elements, we've been very successful at approving housing projects. In fact, we have about 4,000 units right now in the pipeline. And so we're more than meeting our arena in terms of overall units. However, even though we've approved so many units, we've approved more than 3,400 units and 900 affordable units through a ministerial process. A lot of them just remain kind of stuck, and meaning that they haven't proceeded to construction. You've all heard the news about how the residential construction industry is facing significant economic challenges. With the tariffs, it's resulting in, volatile construction material costs. There's high interest rates, stagnant rental rates. All these factors really have created a tough construction financing market for developers. So in looking at the data in terms of building permits issued for housing construction, you'll see this chart. This shows that, in the last 2 years, there's been a significant plunge in the number of building permits that have been issued for multifamily units. This year, there was only 2. One was a 2 or 3 unit project, and the other was for a 100% affordable housing project. So that kind of goes to show you just how dire the industry is. So just to step back of what our existing HPP program does, our existing HPP program is codified in Chapter 9.64, and it provides 3 options. As you remember, this Planning Commission went through a number of changes in amending the HPP when we did the housing element. So if you're a housing project of 2 to 5 units, you could pay the affordable housing in lieu fee. And so that is about $40 per square foot, or $50 if you're a condo project. However, if you're between 6 to 19 units, you could provide your units on site, 15% specifically, and all of those have to be derestricted to lower income. If you're a larger housing project of 20 units or more, you provide 15% on-site, but it's distributed across the very low, low, and moderate income categories. And this was done specifically so we could meet our RHNA targets. It also has the off-site option, I will mention that, but the off-site option is for 20%, so it's a higher percentage of affordable housing. And all of those are deed restricted for lower income households so that they are eligible for tax credit financing. So what this adopted pilot program does is that it allows multiple unit projects of 6 units or more that have been approved to opt into this voluntary program. So there was a cutoff date of August 12th, 2025. You have to have been an approved housing project as of that date, which was the council date, and you cannot be under construction or have already been completed. We're trying to get shovels in the ground here, so that means like if you're already done and you're completed, it doesn't apply to you. And an important thing to know about this program is that we do have a number of projects that were entitled and approved, but they perhaps were entitled with only a 50% density bonus rather than with the 100% density bonus that AB 1287 gave to projects. So this program does allow a project developer to come back, reapply for the project with a bigger project, and then they could still opt into this off-site affordable housing option. So the pilot program gives 3 options to meet the AHPP requirements. So the first one is the alternative off-site option, which is you take your on-site units that we were previously approved for, and now you're moving that off-site. You would pool it with other off-site units. All these would be lower income, so they could qualify for tax financing. And as I mentioned before, there is flexibility with the timing. Now, the off-site affordable units can begin the market rate project could begin construction before the off-site affordable units. In addition to that, this option does require the developer to pay a gap financing cost of approximately $150,000 per unit. And we'll talk more about that later. Option 2 is the rehabilitation option. This is when the developer could opt to rehabilitate existing units in a number that's equivalent to what they were supposed to have provided on site. These units have to be deemed uninhabitable, and the council has to make these determinations. There are specific facts, findings you have to make in order to deem it uninhabitable. And you would have to have a rehabilitation plan in order to utilize this option. Frankly, we don't expect a whole lot of projects to be utilizing this option, but this does give a second option should, we have units that are in dire shape or uninhabitable shape. Option 3 is the simplest, which is simply the paying in the lieu fee option. So as you recall, our existing HPP allows projects of 5 units or less to pay the in lieu fee. This program expands that option to all these approved projects. Basically, instead of providing the on-site units, they can now just pay the in lieu fee of $43 per square foot for the apartments and $51 for condominiums. And these funds are deposited into the city's housing trust fund. In terms of program benefits, I mentioned the local density bonus. And so state density bonus law, as I said, requires that that affordable units be provided on site in order to get the density bonus. Now, with this program, we're giving you the bonus locally. So you get the same bonus, same everything, if you utilize this program. I also talked about the construction timing. With option 1, they could construct a market rate project first, and they have 48 months, which I will speak to later, to pull the building permit for the off-site affordable housing project. So that could come later and lag behind. And with option 3, which is the in lieu fee option, by simply paying a fee, this reduces uncertainty for housing developers, so it's easier for them to get construction financing because of that. And again, I mentioned the pooling of the off-site lower income units. With that, they're able to leverage tax credit for economies of scale. And so the purpose of this entire program really is to help unlock frozen units and really get shovels in the ground. So because as we've seen before, we're getting 0 building permits being pulled right now. And so we're trying to get these building permits, being issued and so that we actually get units online. So to talk into detail about the three options, option one is the alternate offsite location option. This is how the process would work. So the applicant or developer would apply, they would get approved, and before they could pull the building permit for the market rate project, they have to first identify the offsite location of the affordable units, and they have to enter into agreement with an affordable housing provider to provide those units. Then they have to deposit gap financing cost of $150,000 per unit into the escrow account. Then they begin the market rate construction. And I mentioned the 48 months. They have 48 months within of the issuance of the building permit to begin construction of the affordable units offsite. And they're also allowed a 12-month extension, I should mention. And the affordable housing, the offsite affordable housing property must be owned in whole or in part by the affordable housing provider. And this is something that's different than our normal HPPs, that the affordable units that are provided offsite cannot include studios. Right now, we're seeing that it's very difficult to rent affordable units that are studios, and so this program would restrict, studios from being included in the offsite project. And they also must be deed-restricted for 75 years as opposed to 55 years, which is what our current program requires. Coastal zone projects are given a slightly different timeline, and this is to account for the fact that developers might need to amend their coastal development permit. And so instead of the 48 months and with a 12-month extension, they are allowed to they have to construct within 18 months the affordable unit. Within 18 months of the coastal development permit amendment, they would have to construct the affordable units. And it's the same requirement that these affordable units cannot be studios, and they have to be deed-restricted for 75 years. So this is a graphic of how it would work figuratively in illustration form. Here you have on the left their traditional HPP program that we have. You have an approved housing project that's 150 units. 15 of those units are on site. As you can see on the right, now those 15 units move off site. And so they still get to keep the same project. It's still the 150 unit project, but it's now a fully market rate project. And those 15 units are basically then transferred off site and pooled with other affordable units from other market rate projects. This kind of scenario works best with developers that have lots of land and can pool their units together. We're unlikely to going to see this kind of option utilized by small developers. Just talking a little bit about the gap financing. That gap financing is placed into an interest-bearing escrow account before the issuance of the market rate project. And this assumes a tax credit and no requirement for prevailing wage because, with this being a developer affordable housing this is not a city affordable housing project. It is not subject to prevailing wage requirements, and so that was that assumption. And if construction of the affordable units does not commence within the 48 months and the 1-year extension, then the city can elect to receive the gap financing and the land where the offsite affordable was supposed to be. So there's been a lot of questions floating around about where this 150 came from. So this $150,000 per unit was verified against, a review of the past 6 completed city funding affordable housing projects. This analysis took into account escalation of 5% per year. It subtracted the land acquisition costs and includes prevailing wage. And in reviewing those, our housing division had come up with a range of somewhere between $99,000 to $240,000 per residence. So the 150 is kind of in line, somewhere in the middle of it. The 150 is also what was determined after HRNA conducted a confidential perform analysis for a private affordable housing developer, private developer. HRNA looked at a development program that included a large R2 lot. These are the parameters shown here, and that's where that 150 came from as well. So as I mentioned, the 150 is generally consistent with other city project subsidies. That doesn't include the land. They found some modeling assumptions fairly aggressive. I'm not going to try to speak to this because some of the stuff I don't really understand, but at the end of the day, HRNA concluded that the subsidy gap of the gap financing cost should be somewhere in the range of 150 to 160. So to go over a little bit of the option 2 on the substantial rehab option, this is the process of how it would go. As I mentioned, council would need to determine whether or not those existing units are uninhabitable. A rehabilitation plan would need to be approved. Relocation assistance would need to be provided to the tenants. And so there is a significant process that needs to happen before the market rate construction can begin construction. And those the rehab of those existing units have to be completed before the C of O for the market rate project. And once they're rehabbed, those units have to be de-restricted for 75 years. And lastly, the in lieu fee option just requires the payment of the in lieu fees before the building permits for the market rate project. The fee is based on the square footage cost, square footage of the market rate project. So you simply take the base fee, which is the $43 or $44 I mentioned, and multiply it by the floor area, and that's how you get to the in lieu fee. This fee is updated annually based on changes in construction and land costs. So I believe the in lieu fee is due for update in October. That will be coming to council. So we ran some quick numbers to kind of see what these in lieu fees would look like for a range of projects. As you could see, it really depends on the size of the market rate project, but these are some projects. We took out the names and the addresses of them, but that's what it would look like if they took advantage of the in lieu fees. I mentioned that when council adopted this pilot program, they limited to 1,000 units cap or September 30th, whichever was first. So about 1 or 2 days after the program was adopted, we did receive 6 applications, and so that pretty much capped us out. Those 6 applications were for 1,018 units, which includes 916 market rate units and 102 affordable units. 5 of those applications chose the off-site option, and so same developer was able to pool their affordable units off-site into 2 properties. And then the 6th application was for the in lieu fee option, and that was for a smaller project at 2906 Santa Monica Boulevard. You could actually track these projects, and on our website, we launched a website to track, kind of the status of these projects. So if you go on this website and click on status of offsite HPP, you should be able to see a map and details of what each of these projects have in terms of units. As I mentioned, we are returning to council on September 30th with comments that we had received from affordable housing providers, and we will be asking some policy questions about whether or not they want to amend or extend the affordable housing pilot program. And that's it.
Are there any questions, Leslie?
First, I want to say I am thrilled with this program. I mean, I think it shows an amazing leadership and creativity on the part of the city council and staff. I mean, I think it's really going to be very, very helpful for the housing pipeline, and I'm impressed. I support it 100%. I do have some questions. They're just sort of technical things. We talked today about the concessions are the same as the density bonus program, correct?
Correct.
Does that apply to the affordable project and the market rate project?
The affordable housing projects will also be eligible for regular state density bonus, so.
Okay, so can they waive the bedroom thing? Could they include studios even when we don't want them to?
The way that the financing works, I believe, and Natalie's not here, our housing manager, but there are specific requirements in terms of bedroom mixes for getting the tax financing, and so.
The studios are not good for tax credits? I didn't know that.
I think that if I'm not mistaken, the ordinance does not allow studios in the affordable project, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
The concessions don't apply to the affordable project or just the bedroom mix?
No, it's because this is a voluntary incentive program. it doesn't change their base approval. This is, they're volunteering to essentially choose an alternative project. One of the, I'll just say the rules of the program is that the offsite affordable cannot have any studios in it.
Oh, okay, I got it, okay. And then I have another concern, and it's a good thing Oliver isn't here. The the money from the in lieu fees will go into the famous Housing Trust Fund, correct?
Yes, correct.
And we know what can happen to housing trust funds. We've learned the hard way that those funds could be taken out to pay city debt, and that is not good. So is there any way we can make that not happen? Could those funds go into an escrow account like option one money?
It would be costly to do that.
It is not possible?
No, I mean, obviously, this is a political decision, so, and so I think there's a commitment to use this for affordable housing. I know when we went to council, they were interested in using the money for some of the city-owned sites, and we're contemplating development on city-owned sites. So that is in the...
Was the Housing Trust Fund ever paid back, just out of curiosity?
Not completely.
Okay. Hate to bring that up. So basically, I mean, I had some real trouble with the 4-year lag. That I've talked to a nonprofit today who said it could indeed take 4 years to get the 3% credits or 4% credits, whatever. But if it doesn't, they'll start sooner. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't start for 4 years. They could maybe start in 2 or 3, so that it gives them a window for realistic tax credit application.
That is correct. The 4 years was really to allow for any kind of hiccups in the application process.
Okay, and then if the developer picks option 1, the developer puts the gap financing per unit in an escrow account in their name and the city's name. What about the land acquisition cost? Where's that go?
So the land is land that they already own. So
They already
basically,
own.
they have to prove that they have clean title, and we, so we're going to check all the title so that we can record restrictions on it before the building permit is issued for the market rate unit.
Okay, and then I only have 1 or 2 more questions.
There's an option agreement that's also recorded. So what happens is the option agreement and the covenants basically allow the city to pay $100 to get the land back if they don't perform. So that's what the option agreement does.
Oh, cool. And then why, I understand that option 1 can't happen in the Pico neighborhood.
Yes, well, all of these options can't happen.
Why can't-
Options 1 and 2, because.
Why can't option 2? Because there are a lot of rent-burdened, low-income people living in multifamily buildings in Pico that could benefit from this.
Sorry, I want to clarify the affordable units can't go into.
That's what I mean. Well, obviously, market rate's not going into Pico.
Only option 1. No, the rehab units are, no, there's no restriction on the rehab
It
unit.
just makes all the sense in the world to do some kind of proactive thing in Pico. We've got rent-burdened people, low-income people.
We're already doing that for Virginia Avenue.
I'm sorry?
We're already doing it for a Virginia Avenue project. Outside of this, we're providing loans.
I know about the Virginia Avenue project. But you can't go into Pico with rehab otherwise?
No, you can. It's only option 1
Where you
you
can't do it.
can't
Okay.
locate the
I
affordable
understand.
housing because they did not want to have too many affordable housing projects in the Pico neighborhood. So we did not deviate. It's already in the existing AHPP, and we just carried
gotcha.
that over.
And then this is the final question, who selects the nonprofit partner?
They do, but we get to have approval rights.
Okay, so they run it by you first.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to imagine who that would be, or the universe it would be from, at any rate.
The landscape is changing, so I wouldn't say it's the traditional.
Well, I'm not saying CCSM. I mean, there are a lot of nonprofits out there
There's
interested.
a lot of nonprofits.
Yeah,
I know some of the developers have their own in-house affordable,
I understand. And I was also heartened because when Rachel and I talked today, I was worried about that everybody's going to pick the in lieu fee option because it seemed like the cheapest way to go. But in reality, the 5 projects that have come in are actually going with the offsite, which is very reassuring.
If you have the land, it's a better option.
Right, and it makes all the sense for smaller, 1 or 2 projects to go with the in lieu fee. And we've now extended the in lieu fee option to everybody, which will also help. Well, thanks for your hard work. I'm really, really impressed.
Commissioner Fresco.
Thank you. I couldn't help but notice that in your program status table that you showed us there, that a lot of the receiver site for 3 of the 6 projects is 13337 7th Street, which is a property that I believe is the one with the checkered past and is required to provide affordable units, and a certain number of them have to be, is that the one?
No.
Do you know which one I'm thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, it's not that. Okay, I was just concerned. I didn't want this to erase past debts.
That's another issue, but.
Yes, okay.
So this
All right.
1330 was the subject of a prior entitlement. The developer has pulled the entitlements and withdrawn the
Right,
entitlements.
there've
So
been
there
so
are no-
many that have
Yes,
come before us
so-
that all the addresses blur together. and
Right.
That one just jumped out
There's
and
a lot on 7th Street.
yeah, okay, just making sure. I didn't want to have this, I want everything to all happen, not
Right.
things to take over from others. I was just curious about this rehab option, and why, first of all, I want to know why city council would be the body to review and decide. That seems kind of like
It's actually a housing element requirement if we want to count those substantially rehabilitated units towards our RENA allocation, because basically you have to show that you're adding new units, and in order to do that, you have to show that they're basically can't be occupied. City council has to make a finding. We have to send code enforcement out there. It's actually a very onerous option, but we had one property that actually fit the bill, and it was appropriate because we wanted to use housing trust fund monies to provide the loan assistance, so that's why.
So, I mean, this is kind of going out into left field, but because of my particular area of expertise, I can think of historic buildings that may or may not qualify for landmark designation that people say are uninhabitable, and that's why they have to be allowed to demolish them. And
Yeah, it's actually a technical definition, and so they have to meet certain health and safety code violations, which is why code enforcement has to go out there. So it's along the lines of plumbing, electrical, like serious, roofing that's missing, things that would make these units unfit for occupancy.
I see, okay.
And HCD has specific requirements, and they dictate all of these findings have to be made in order for it to count.
So on a more technical basis, getting into finance, which is not even close to my area of expertise, but I know that the idea is to get shovels in the ground, and you listed some of the things that are preventing that is the tariffs and materials costs and things, and access to money and so forth. And it says in the report, and you kind of intimated in your report, that it's not 100% sure that this will result in shovels in the ground. So how would it help a developer? Because they are, in fact, developing more later, so it's not cheaper. So you see what I'm saying?
Well, what they're saying is, at least what we have been told, and we believe there is some substance to it, is that you can't get an equity partner to agree to provide a subsidy or equity investment for a market rate project if you have to build an affordable housing project off-site, which has no cap on what it is they would have to invest in, right? So initially we started out with, well, you have to just build it and we have to figure out what that is. But in reality, the equity investor wants to know what are they looking at as their total risk before they invest in the market rate project. So the compromise to that is to figure out as close as possible what it would cost for a 4% tax credit project now, and then build in some escalation based upon the construction cost index, put it into an escrow account, get interest on it, get the land, and recognizing that at the end of the day, we could not promise or guarantee that the units would be built. But it is still a cheaper option than having the city build them, because when the city has to build them, it's like $1 million a door versus what the developer has to pay. So there's a significant, efficiency in having a private developer do this. But yes, I could not tell you that there's absolutely a guarantee that these units will be built.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Commissioner Landris.
Thank you. I also agree that this is a great project. I am curious to know whether there are more opportunities like this. We have been trying to get moderate rate housing built. Those tend to be smaller projects. Those tend to be hard to do because it's just one unit or, 2 units relative to a given project. Is there any consideration of the possibility of expanding this to give developers opportunities to, build moderate rate units through this program as well? They'd obviously not get the same kind of tax increment financing, but
Yeah, it's funny you should mention, we actually had our affordable housing roundtable, and one of the housing providers did mention that, like if they wanted the opportunity to build workforce housing, perhaps, they wanted more options. So certainly it is up to council's discretion to expand this program to include that. And so, yeah, they would, and we would be taking that comment and feedback to them so that they are aware, but that was a comment that we heard today.
okay. And then the affordable housing provider, it can be a for-profit affordable housing provider as well, right? For-profit or nonprofit. The lists are still controlled by the city, right?
Are you talking about the tenant list?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that policy hasn't
Correct.
changed,
Correct.
right? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Chaco.
Thank you. Some of my questions have been answered, but I still have a few. I'm intrigued by, because my impression too was that option 3 would be the easiest, but I'm intrigued by the fact that many of the participants have been choosing option 1. I'm curious about how that works. I think you touched on that a little bit, because
Yeah.
my impression, and I'd also, maybe part 2 of that is, I'm curious if there's an estimate of what the in lieu fee amounts to in terms of a percentage of actual costs.
So the ones that were able to utilize option 1 is typically a common landowner, so it was a developer that had to have a lot of land. Now, what was your second question?
The second question is, in terms of if you compare the cost between option 1 to option 3, one would think that option 3 would be the cheaper option.
Except that you have to lay out cash. I think for the developers that utilize option 1, they already have banked the land. So
yes.
it's really just putting out less cash in the form of gap financing. And for option 3, this is based on a Nexus study that was done in 2006. And then every year, there is a cost escalation based on median condo value increases in the city, as well as construction cost escalation. And so every year we up that fee based on whatever the actual numbers are that come in.
So I guess my question was really about the original Nexus study. Was that intended to actually recover 100% of the cost of the unit, or was it some adjusted amount below the actual cost?
I think it was intended to recover the cost. Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I think from some of the conversation I've heard so far, we aren't expecting that the in lieu fee would actually be the equivalent of getting a unit. It's likely to end up with less units, right?
I think it depends. Yes, if the city were to have to build it and these units are more expensive, yes, we'd probably get less units than if a private developer built them under option 1, for example.
I think if the question
you
is
meant?
whether like the collection of the in lieu fee is equivalent, like is sufficient money to actually construct the number of units, like no, the
Right.
answer is no. It would still need, in order to number one, it have to be on land, assuming it's on city-owned land, it likely would need some
Right.
subsidy potentially.
And that was
like
the
it's-
actual intent originally of adding the in lieu fee option,
Right.
because it could be used on city-owned land.
Right.
Susan, can
So-
you put microphone up? I can't hear you.
So related to your last point, are there in fact city-owned pieces of land that are ready to go, waiting for potential funding to put units on that could really substantially benefit from this?
Well, we have made a commitment in the housing element to develop city-owned sites for affordable housing.
700 units of program.
Okay. Couple more questions. There was a mention somewhere in the staff report about Measure GH as one of the reasons that's been touted as what's causing problems with proceeding with housing projects. I'm curious whether, as part of all of this consideration, there's been any thought into whether something can be done on that end with regard to providing a more substantial, sort of getting at the root cause of some of the delays. From the standpoint of the fact that I think the intent of that measure was actually to benefit housing as well, right?
Right, it's an initiative, so the answer is we don't have any, the city wouldn't have any control unless they were to put like another ballot measure.
So for example, if there was intended to be some other exceptions, for example, that would involve a ballot measure as well. I did have one more, but you can come back to me if you like.
Okay. Any other questions on this side? Okay. Commissioner Reese.
Yeah. Did I hear the offs? First of all, I appreciate the uniqueness of the program and trying to get this off the ground, because obviously there's a problem all over trying to get projects built. If I'm going off-site, if I'm consolidating all my affordable off-site, did I hear that that site can ask for a density bonus? And are they going to use those same affordable units to qualify? So they're getting,
It's a local bonus.
so they're getting a double bonus though, basically.
But
Well, that explains probably why they're gravitating towards it. Okay, I mean, that's a big give.
I see.
The next one that I want to ask is the 4 years, so 4 years they have to pull a building permit.
Before we leave that point though, you know, it's a 100% affordable housing project. So if they get like a double bonus, you're getting double the amount of affordable units.
But they're using a set aside that was already committed to something else to get those increased. So we're not, in my mind, we're not increasing the density. You're taking the density from one site that they use to double that site. They're using those affordable and moving it over to the other site, right? And now they're using that as a set aside so they can now 100% bonus that site. We're not getting as much affordable if they were built in two.
Anybody
If they were to
can
apply
double
for
the
tax,
affordable
that
site.
entire
can't,
project
but-
would have to be affordable, 100% affordable.
Okay,
housing.
but in my mind, I still haven't seen that we're losing out on some affordable, but hey, if nothing, a percent of zero is better than nothing. Okay, but it is a big give. Okay, so then the 4 years, they have to pull a building permit. And then if they don't perform, I heard they have to give back the gap financing and the land.
It's in a escrow account, so basically we would have the right to just draw on the escrow account and exercise our option on the land.
So now we're the landowners,
Now we're the landowners.
and we're banking that land, hoping we get enough money to build the affordable.
Correct.
Okay, I hope we don't become landowners, a lot of landowners.
We already are.
All right, thank you.
Come back to you. Commissioner Chalk.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that last question, because I think that helps me understand a little bit better with regard to option one. But just to clarify then, if a participant has gotten a density bonus on one site and they opt into the program, they get to keep the density bonus for market rate on that existing site, so that's an incentive. Then they get to transfer those units to another site and get a density bonus there using those same units towards that density bonus on that second site?
So the first project keeps the original density bonus,
Yes.
right? Or the local bonus, and then the off-site also gets its own bonus based on whatever they're providing in terms of affordable units.
And it's 100% affordable.
And
So they have to
if
provide,
do 100%.
but they have to provide additional affordable units over and above the ones that were transferred from the
Yeah,
first
with the
site.
density bonus, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's not what I just heard.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, it's
That's
not
what I
exactly
was
that. I think you are correct, but they would get the density bonus. They're basically transferring that 15 of the 100 there to the other site, right?
Right.
So they get the bonus in the form of those 15 are now going to be market rate. They get a density bonus on top of that for the market rate. And then for the off-site, that would satisfy the requirement for them to get a bonus on the off-site.
so they do get a double bonus.
Yeah, it's like, it's.
So that's a
definitely-
very significant incentive.
Yes, it's definitely incentive to get them to do it. True.
Understood.
When you say about they get a double bonus, the off-site is going to be owned and operated by an affordable housing developer.
Correct.
So it's not like the developer himself or herself is getting the double bonus.
Right.
The city gets the double bonus. The project will,
Or,
each
right, it
project
gets-
will
we
be
get
owned.
the 100% affordable
Yeah.
housing project.
Yeah, the affordable housing developer can build a more dense, higher project.
So the second site can't be owned by the original developer that participated in the program?
No.
Have to be a housing provider that we approve, yeah.
Understood.
Okay.
I do have a couple more questions. if I may.
Okay.
Yeah. Regarding the second option, the property that gets rehabilitated does not have to be a city-owned property or a nonprofit-owned property. It could be, so in other words, the participant in the program would have to acquire
Or
this.
enter into a deal with someone else who needs it, yeah.
I see. And so the owner of those rehabbed units would also benefit from this program?
Correct.
Understood. Okay.
I want to revisit the question about how this will unstick stuck projects. I understand the need, and I like the proposal. I understand kind of the concept of it, but I'd like to better understand how the city expects to unstick market rate projects with this, with what this change is proposing.
Well, in a way it has, because we have the 6 applications, so, if they pull building permits, that's unsticking it, at least from where it was before.
Right.
And it is, right now, it is a pilot program. Whether council chooses to extend it or not is still a question.
Yeah, I guess see a lot of market rate projects outside of Santa Monica that are also stuck, and for reasons that are outside of any kind of, in lieu fee. Was there something specific about these deals that let them unstick those projects and move forward with this in lieu fee being paid?
Well, we have the developer here, but I think the real unsticking point is the fact that they had land banked.
Okay. So, okay, so they own the land, so they were able to basically have the investment they had made in the land count towards this fee, and so they're essentially bringing the land at like a zero cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's already a sunk cost.
Okay. Was this program crafted with a specific kind of development plan in mind, or was it meant to be broadly accessed by all developers?
Understanding the politics of this, we limited it intentionally to projects that were stuck, right?
Okay.
Versus any new projects. So that's how it is now. If council wanted to unleash this option for any other developers, that's totally up to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
for broad understanding, it's to qualify, you have to be any project that was approved before August 12th, and the entitlement is still active. So it can't be a dead entitlement. It cannot be something that's under construction
Okay.
or already
Yeah.
received its building permit. And that represents, it's roughly like 40 or so projects, representing about 4,000 units is the universe of what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, because you do put yourself at higher risk when you have a 48-month clock ticking on an affordable housing site. you would think the in lieu fee would be the easier, riskier, lower price option, which also led me to, when I first read this, the Housing Trust Fund kept coming back to mind because it seemed like a really logical way for the city to unstick projects and also then replenish the Housing Trust Fund at the same time. Can we just have a brief sidebar on the Housing Trust Fund? Because I'm surprised, I think a lot of us are surprised that they chose the other option and not the in lieu fee.
But
Yeah.
again, it's because they own the land already.
Yeah.
So they already had a sunk cost in the site.
Do we have a sense of what is in the Housing Trust Fund today?
Well, we do have a sense. We have actual numbers, but unfortunately, I don't have them at hand. We do
Okay.
have to do a report, usually before the end of the year, to identify how much money we have in there, how much is committed, how much is uncommitted, how much hasn't been spent over the last X number of years. So that report is published every year. There was one for last year, and another one coming soon.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Wasserman.
Thanks. Could you pull up the applicants? So just, were the first 5 a single developer?
First 5 are by the same developer, yes.
Okay, yeah, so I think the discussion of choices, it's just one developer made that choice, another developer made the other choice. Excuse me. Were there any other applicants that, or developers that you know of that wanted this but didn't get it in time?
Not that we're aware of. I think because this program was so new, it wasn't even, we tried broadcasting and we sent out a MailChimp and, announcements, but, within 2 days it, got capped, so. But not that we're aware of. Yeah.
Also, you'd have to hold vacant property, right?
Right.
So.
Do you get a sense that this is, maybe not with respect to this particular developer, but like if this were to move forward, this would just be a necessary step that the equity partner would make every developer go through because it's cheaper in various ways, or that this is really the notch that's unsticking, makes the project feasible?
I don't know. I don't think I can speculate about that, but we do have the developers represented.
Wait for public comment. Is there any potential that they could come to multiple developers could come to some deal where one would supply the land, but then the other could pay half the value of the land or something like that? So multiple different developers could go in on option 1?
They could certainly do that. Our ordinance does not preclude that. It would be up to them, but.
As long as they have clear title and we can record the option agreement and the covenants.
But only one of the developers would have the title. Could another one kind of get in there?
You have no idea how, ownership can happen, but in any event, as long as we have clear access to title,
Sure.
That's what we care about.
And then the $150K, again, maybe you haven't thought about this because this is just a pilot that has already filled up, but is there a provision that it would go up in the same way that the in lieu fee does?
It would be escalated based on inflation or index factors, yeah.
Yeah, and the escalation starts, what is it? It's like by the effective date of the ordinance, right? It's like in terms of the clock starting on when an index would apply.
It's a maximum 5.
Yeah, there's a maximum percentage of 5.
Yeah, you make a good point, and I think we will take a closer look at that because, this was intended as a pilot program,
Right.
but yeah.
And then just 2 quick questions on just the existing HPP. If you do a condo conversion of a rental unit, do you have to top up the fee to the condo rate?
Do a condo conversion, you have to jump through an awful lot of hoops to get there, so I'd have to look at that.
And then I'm looking in the staff report, this was brought to my attention, for the area that you use to calculate the in lieu fee is not the definition of habitable area that's used elsewhere in the code, because it includes some covered parking spaces, indoor courtyards. Why is that different than the ordinary definition of a habitable area?
Well, it's the strict definition of floor area, which we've been using in the AHPP, so that has not changed. And the floor area definition it's a technical definition.
Right, but is this particular definition used anywhere else other than AHPP? Okay,
Yeah, it's a standard definition in the zoning code.
that's it.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we do have a late chit.
I do have one more question, if I may.
Okay, do you have one more question, Commissioner Lambert?
Actually, two quick ones.
Okay.
Has HCD been queried about this novel approach, and do you know if they're fine with it?
We spoke to them and they said as long as the intent of the.
Well, that's wonderful, because that's unusual.
Well, we built it into the housing element, so.
Oh, right,
yeah.
okay. The other one, I'm concerned about this density bonus issue, and let me tell you how I see it. If there's an affordable housing site, that affordable housing site is completely under the control of a nonprofit or an affordable housing provider, and they're entitled under state law to a density bonus themselves. They can go 33 additional feet on that affordable housing project. Why would they be okay with the market rate developer coming in and adding market rate units on top of a project they control? I mean, is that even a feasible scenario? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me.
Yeah, I think what we were saying is that those 15 units, which would have been in the market rate unit, that is now going to be used to satisfy.
No, I understand.
Yeah, but there's no market rate units in the offsite.
What some people are worried about is the market rate guys are going to come in and add market rate units on top of the affordable housing project, because no, that's not what you were
I
saying?
don't think that's.
Okay, then I
think that's
totally
It would be a
misunderstood.
tax credit
feasible.
project.
I apologize.
Yeah.
But there could be an affordable housing density bonus. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Chaco.
Yeah, one last question, just so I can understand the concern about concentration. I think you mentioned that this program, particularly option 1, can't result in placement of units in the PICO neighborhood. Is that a definition that essentially covers all areas where there is a concern for concentration?
There is an actual definition in our HPP. It's called the Affordable Housing Prohibition Area. There's a map, and it does include the PICO neighborhood, and there's defined boundaries.
I see.
That concludes our questions. We do have 2 late chits that came in on item 8B. Can I get a vote to accept the late chit?
Yeah, I'm going to move for 2 minutes because we did some agenda management and they may not have been aware that we were moving so quickly. So I'm going to move for 2 minutes.
second.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the first person on our list is Mr. Dave Rand.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dave Rand. I'm a land use attorney. My firm, Rand Pastor Nelson, has worked on most of the housing entitled projects that are pending in the city that you've heard are fully entitled, but yet not advancing to building permit, definitely not getting under construction. I've worked in this city for 15 years now, thereabouts. I think this is actually the most important thing that I've been involved with, this particular ordinance to the extent it's extended when it comes to housing production, because there is no one single thing that the city can do or has done, in my view, to unlock, to use the term that's being used over in multiple times tonight, so many units with one fell swoop. And a tremendous credit to your staff and the city attorney's office for rolling up their sleeves and getting incredibly creative. A lot of cities do housing elements. A lot of cities approve housing projects. A lot of cities have done upzoning. A lot of cities are pro-housing. This is the most sort of concerted and creative effort I've been involved in at the local level, where folks at the council and the staff have worked with the development community to try to actually figure out how to make the projects work. I'm incredibly bullish about the prospects of success of this program. I saw it as soon as the thing was announced. We had 930 of the 1,000 units secured and accounted for within a day. I have multiple clients who are very much hoping that this program gets extended, who will use it, both option 1 and option 3. Cypress Equity Investments is the developer that took up the first 5 projects, Commissioner Wasserman, that you mentioned. There are at least 2 other developers that have multiple properties in the city who have the opportunity to potentially leverage option 1, and there are many more that are looking seriously at the in lieu fee. So this is exciting, and I encourage you to support it, and I hope it goes forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Devon Ray Morgan.
How you guys doing today?
Good, thank you.
I came up here like the last couple of weeks and I spoke up and I was telling you guys that I was the director of finance for some companies, or they were using my name as director of finance. I have a company called A1 Auction. I was telling you guys what I do is I buy and sell sports collectibles, painting, plaques, and jewelry. And what I do is I donate 3 to 5% to Kerry Davis Foundation for people that need low-income housing. The reason I did that was because the people in the city, they don't respect the people that's homeless right here. Because if they did, they would have a bathroom open, or they would have water out there. They would have something that showed that they respected the people that they're here to take care of. So, yeah, that's why I started Kerry Davis Foundation. And I can definitely provide for myself. They didn't want to give me a grant here, so I started selling my own sports cards. That's what I do. So, like I said, like right here, this is LeBron James high school jersey. It's game worn. It's his All-American jersey with his rookie, his pro rookie, and his high school rookie. Behind that, I have a Jackie Robinson and a Jackie Robinson rookie and an autographed Kobe and his rookie. So there was no way ever that somebody was going to contact a person like that that has everything going to even ask him if he wanted to do anything. So, yeah, if there's a chance, if the person can speak up on the things that can get developed here, then I'm willing to listen. But if not, if a person can't have a say-so and don't know where the money's going, I couldn't take that route. So it would be nice for somebody to actually contact somebody and let them know what's going on, instead of just using whatever he has to get everything accomplished. But I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I think we can conclude our study session.
Sure. Can I just ask, are we supposed to make recommendations to council? Or we?
A formal recommendation from the commission on this item isn't necessary. However, the commission always has the option to, for example, appoint the chair to write a letter to represent the commission's position. Any individual commissioner could attend the council meeting. You have any variety of, options, but a formal recommendation is not necessary.
Okay, I just think it would be helpful, because I would imagine you're going to mention that this came to us. So I think it would be really helpful to mention that we were broadly in favor of it and, excited by the possibilities. We did this with cars in the downtown when we allowed all those parking structures to satisfy parking requirements on individual properties. I think people are more important than cars. So I'm glad we're doing this. But I do think if there were particular tweaks that people wanted, it would be worth kind of just listing them out fairly quickly so that they can go into the staff report. I would love to see that moderate rate piece be explored for myself. That would be the only thing I would add.
Can I ask a quick question? So where is this now with council? How far along are they, and has this been finalized, or when will that happen?
So they adopted the program initially on August 12th with effectively like a 1 month, with a termination of September 30th and then direction to return back on the 30th, and then with the 1,000-unit caps. It was essentially just really a true pilot, like let's see what happens and let's talk about it more. On the 30th, the ordinance is written and it's attached to the agenda. In terms of the posting of that, it'll be posted next week. So we, going back to the council, we'll report back on the results of the program, the results of outreach and kind of, I think, presenting council policy considerations or just things that they can consider, just because this whole program, you know, they have a tremendous amount of policy discretion, you know, as to what they want to do with it. And, you know, we're really using the public, the outreach, the comments, like, for example, from the Affordable Housing Roundtable that occurred today, you know, to identify some areas that we heard and the council, you know, might want to consider in what happens next with the program.
Okay.
Josh?
Yes.
I think a letter from the chair of the Planning Commission would be really appropriate. I actually wrote a letter as a resident, not as a planning commissioner, at the last hearing. I can send that to you if you want. But I think we should go on record as a planning commission approving this project.
Commissioner Chapo.
I'd like to say that I think while I'm broadly in favor of the program, I like it primarily as a pilot program. And I think the idea of it being extended periodically for defined periods of time with monitoring of progress is a crucial part of it. And I have potential concerns of it just becoming a permanent program that may end up with unintended consequences.
If I may, I think, and I hear that concern. I think the flip side is that we stick to the state's program, and without a robust housing trust fund, those projects would kind of revert to form. So this is an in-run around the bottleneck that's caused by there not being enough money in the housing trust fund to fund projects through the state density bonus program, if I'm thinking about this correctly.
I saw Commissioner Wasserman, but I mean, I agree that this is useful as a scalpel, right? It's not this is a tool. I could see council noticing, as it did, right, that we're not putting affordable in PICO. Would we want to target particular areas of town for where these projects are going? I don't know where the land is that is owned, that's been banked by different developers, but I think given where we are broadly with housing construction, it would be appropriate to extend this at the very least through the end of the current housing element, for example, and allow it to sunset at that point, and then allow whatever, you know, as the next housing element is developed, then look at the successes of the program and say, okay, how do we want to tweak it for the next housing element? We also don't know what what state housing law is going to look like at that point. So I agree with you in the sense that we don't want to make it so permanent that, you know, we reverse decades of progress on inclusionary housing, right? But we also don't want to make it so onerous on council and staff that we're coming back and tweaking it every 3 months.
I mean, I think there's a pretty clear delineation of what projects are eligible. And they're the ones in the pipeline. It's about a little more than 4,000 units. I wouldn't want to see the city council limited to any less than that. I mean, let's just get the pipeline through, see what happens, how does it go, and we'll plan from there.
Right. Okay. I'm going to say my normal comment that I always say when we talk about affordable housing in the PICO neighborhood. And while I understand the historic concentration of affordable housing in the PICO neighborhood, I also want to say that affordable housing is actually a net positive for the city, no matter where it goes. And what I want to push back on is that affordable housing, when we exclude it from a certain neighborhood, what we're saying is that there's a negative connotation that we're trying to protect that neighborhood from by keeping affordable housing from it. I think affordable housing needs to be distributed throughout the city of Santa Monica. And, you know, while I understand there is a concentration in PICO neighborhood, I want to eventually get us past that where PICO neighborhood is open for affordable housing. We have a lot of families that live there that have children and parents who can't afford to live in their neighborhood. And by increasing the supply of affordable housing, we let them stay in the Pico neighborhood. So I just don't want to lose sight of that.
I would like to add, just beyond that comment, it also happens to be near jobs and transit.
Yeah, that's right.
To transit. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense.
And rents are actually very, very high in Pico neighborhood. So they're not affordable. I think we need to start to change the dialogue.
Well, I think there are two things that need to be said about that. Number one, yes, and HCD had some very choice words for us when it comes to the distribution of housing in Santa Monica. So until such time as we can actually make a legally defensible case, I understand the rationale for the city's restriction here. I don't disagree with anything you've said. I think affordable housing is a net positive wherever it is. That doesn't change what happened with the housing element and what we had to do to deal with it. However, and I think the other point is, I'm thinking about the way we were trying to encourage congregations with large, totally depreciated parking lots that were doing nothing to build affordable housing, and we gave them a lot of leeway to do it. I would be, and a lot of those are, they're all over the city. I would love to see the program tweaked, for example, to figure out ways to streamline that, right? And that's an example, actually, to your point, Commissioner Lambert, of we have a voluntary overlay on moderate rate that gives some flexibility to the congregations so that they can lease to who they want to, right? And it's a market rate and it's a combination. So if there were a way to work it out, that might be, Rachel, to the moderate conversation, maybe there's a way to work it out to allow developers to meet moderate requirements in collaboration with congregations that have parking lots. And the congregations may not want to release the parking lots, the ground lease, but there might be a solution there. And that could happen, maybe if it's moderate rate, that could happen anywhere in the city. I'm just looking for an incremental next step as opposed to a, big next step.
I want to conclude our conversation on this item and move on to onto 8B. But before we do, I am in support of a letter coming from the Planning Commission. I think we need to better understand what the conversation was with the affordable housing providers. I'd like to be able to incorporate some of that into the letter. Because what I think we're going to be writing a letter about is asking the city to continue this after September 30th. And I think we should be able to give some constructive feedback about how to make it better September 30th going forward. And so I think if we can get more information about what our affordable housing providers gave us today, that would be helpful.
I'll send you the letter I sent.
Yeah, we could send a summary tomorrow.
Okay.
We're working up on a summary since it was just held today.
Okay.
So I'll move that we appoint, can we do this? It's not noticed. Can we appoint the Chair Hamilton and Commissioner Lambert to be an ad hoc committee of two to consult with the chair so that the chair can write a letter that incorporates the comments and recommendations that were made
Well,
here.
it's before my surgery, so that should work.
Yeah.
As long as we can meet over Zoom.
Well, no, just the two of you, and we're just going to leave it with you. I just want to make sure that
That's fine.
that my comments about moderate rate in the congregations are incorporated and maybe extending to the housing element deadline. Commissioner Chaco's concerns about not overly expanding, obviously your concerns about making sure that this is as equitable and as broad-based as possible. But, that would be my motion that incorporates these.
And also an emphasis on monitoring of progress.
Yeah. You want a second?
I second it.
Okay. So I think we're ready to conclude. And shall we vote to conclude this discussion? Oh, sorry. I'm still working at the kinks here.
Yeah, just a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You know, I'm going to take off. I'm less spaced, but my knee hurts. So
Okay.
I'll see you guys in November. Hopefully. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, we can now go back in time to item 8A. We
Yeah, I
did
just-
lose the city
Yeah,
manager.
he had to go to another meeting. He's very apologetic. He wasn't able to make it tonight, but we will schedule him on a future agenda.
Okay.
When more of us are here.
I'd like to invite staff to present.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me, city staff, members of the public. Once again, my name is Tony Lopez. I'm the city's senior park planner within Public Works, and I'm here today to present on the 2025 Parks and Recreation Vision Plan update. So in short, we did it. This process started quite a long time ago, before I even began with the city last April. The process to update the 1997 Parks and Recreation Master Plan began in 2018 with several rounds of community outreach. The intent was that in 2019 and 2020, a revised, updated Parks and Recreation Master Plan would be presented for adoption. Unfortunately, in March of 2020, that's when the update was set to be presented. The COVID pandemic hit. The project was put on hold and eventually didn't get picked up again until I was brought on board in April of 2024 to bring it to the finish line. Who uses the Parks and Recreation Vision Plan? The community uses it to identify open space opportunities that exist within their neighborhoods. Planners use it to evaluate the potential to amplify complete neighborhoods. Architects and consultants use it to create comprehensive design solutions that integrate the benefits of open space. And boards and commissions use it to evaluate and calibrate the impacts of development on the carrying capacity of our parks. In fall of 2024, when we began the update once again, the goal was user friendliness. What we wanted to make sure was that this document was very easy for the community to understand so that anyone could pick up this document and use it to their benefit. Because when it comes to, for example, applications for grants, not only the city has the ability to apply for those grants, but the community, 501c3s. We wanted this document to be a resource for them. So having the ability to make sure it was very comprehensive and give them the tools to write successful applications was one of our goals. The document is set up with an introduction. Simply, what is the Parks and Recreation Vision Plan? It's set up in 4 chapters, Vision and Network. Vision and Network looks at an overall park inventory. What do we have in our parks? Community Voices is a summary of the 2018 and 19 outreach and also explains the 2025 outreach conducted as part of this process. Chapter 3, Actions, looks at all the actions and recommendations that we will utilize to achieve the vision of this plan. And Implementation looks at moving forward. What do we do with the plan? We have a conclusion and appendices that look to support the overall plan, providing additional information for the community. Companion narratives are also sprinkled throughout the plan to help elevate particular boards, commissions, and other community groups that have a stake in our Parks and Recreation network. I want to point out within the appendices, those are the actions matrix, which is, sorry, is there some echo feedback? The actions matrix is simply a very simplified list of all the actions and recommendations. Appendix B is the existing conditions and amenities and components action matrix, which looks at all of the amenities and components within our park network and establishes 5, 10, and 20-year work plans to address maintenance. Appendix C is the Community Recreation and Arts Needs Assessment Survey feedback. Appendix D, potential funding, looks at all of our various funding resources. E is citing criteria. We looked at particular amenities within our network to help define the necessary components that would go into a successful implementation. Open space history looks at a comprehensive look at where our park network has been. The airport conversion report is included as part of the appendix because when this project was initially underway in 2018, it was part of the overall scope of that project. And finally, related plans and documents. This provides the community with a comprehensive list of all the associated plans and documents that might influence any work associated with a park and open space network. So what is the vision? City as habitat. A vision for nourishing habitat for people, plants, animals, and program, continuing the city's commitment in striving to prevent harm to the natural environment and human health. A vision that addresses community open space need through acquisition, expansion, and improvements, enhancing resilience and reinforcing sustainability initiatives. The 1997 plan's vision was city as park. This city as habitat idea is not anything new. I want to read a snip from the open space element. Parks and open spaces provide vital opportunities for recreation, relaxation, and contemplation, as well as habitat. This vision is the next step in the evolution of our parks network. Some of the goals to enable open space to grow with our city. We heard earlier today about how we want to advance the growth of our city, and we want to be able to grow our park network in concert with that. We want to position the city to respond quickly and responsibly to opportunities that enhance our parks as settings for habitat. We want to act in support of water self-sufficiency, zero waste, and carbon neutrality. We want to maintain open dialogue with the community on nature advocacy, and we want to reaffirm the Sustainable Rights Ordinance. Just a bit of a network refresher. There were a lot of different numbers, quantities associated with our park network in the various plans. Now, a lot of our adopted plans and initiatives came online at different dates. So what we really wanted to do with this 2025 plan was create a hub for all that information. Our overall network is approximately 144 acres. That equates to roughly 1.55 acres per 1,000 residents based on our 2020 census data. In 2016, LA County conducted a regional parks and recreation needs assessment that told us that the county average, is 3.3 park acres per 1,000 residents. In 2022, the county conducted a needs assessment plus, which looked more closely at rural and recreational regional need. Most notably, the Pico neighborhood within Santa Monica has a 1 indicator classification for additional regional recreation need. Looking forward from 144, this vision champions increased biodiversity, urban forest, methods to combat climate change, open space to serve growing need, education, cultural, recreational, art spaces, and supporting program through acquisition, expansion, improvements, and partnerships. Chapter 1, Vision and Network, looks at, again, a park inventory. This particular chapter notes all of our parks and all of our existing amenities, notes quantity, and the ability for any of our parks to take on additional existing amenity typologies. This particular chapter also has narratives associated with all the neighborhood groups. Part of the outreach of this process was to speak to those neighborhood groups and understand what their particular needs are, with the understanding that they are the ones who live in these neighborhoods and know exactly what they need. Chapter 2, Community Voices, again, recaps the 2018 and 19 outreach. We did not want to dismiss the efforts from that time. We wanted to lean on that information and use that as a jumping off point. From that analysis, we understood that there was a missing piece in the puzzle, which is why we conducted the 2025 Community Recreation Arts Needs Assessment. That assessment told us how many park acres we need and how many types of amenities we need based on our current inventory. It also told us that the city of Santa Monica needs more parks, needs more amenities, but the city loves the network program. 96% of respondents to that survey visit a parks, arts, and recreation facility in a typical year. The national average is 81%. 49% of respondents participate in a city program or event in a typical year, with the national average being 36%. Some top priorities based on this assessment are walking loops and trails, community parks, a large regional park, neighborhood parks, an aquatics facility, pocket parks, and more community gardens. So the question before us today, the 1997 plan recommended a targeted growth of park acreage from 112.7 acres to a range of 143.8 to 170 acres. As I mentioned, we currently stand at approximately 144. So we just met that goal from 1997. So what goal does the community want to establish for this plan related to the future growth of the city's park acreage and park amenities? We have the data, but I cannot be the one to say exactly what that acreage is, which is why we're conducting this other final leg of outreach to understand what the community feels is the best approach for the next 20 to 25 years. Some considerations when determining what that number might be. Again, the city of Santa Monica is 1.55 park acres per 1,000 residents. The county assessment conducted in 2016 classifies the city of Santa Monica as moderate in terms of park acreage need. Now, that classification is based on total acreage plus population and distance to parks. One thing to note is that our neighboring cities are all high or very high need with no more than 1 park acre per 1,000 residents. Again, the county average is 3.3 park acres per 1,000, and that's just an average, it's not a recommendation. Common planning standards is about 5 park acres per 1,000 residents. In 2025, the National Rec and Parks Association recommended about 6 to 10 park acres per 1,000 residents, and that's based on a city population of about 100,000 to 250,000 people. It's important to note that in our 2020 census, we were about 93,000 residents, but based on our city website, we receive about a 250,000 daytime population with visitors and those coming into our city. It's also important to note that the county does not include beach acreage because as part of that assessment, not every city within the county has a beach. However, the National Rec and Park Association does include the beach. So we want to be considerate of how we balance those numbers accordingly so that, for example, understanding that our beach acreage will add approximately 2.17 additional acres per 1,000. That might be something we want to keep in our back pocket when we determine an average park acreage per 1,000 so that when we add that back onto it, we're right in that sweet spot of the NRPA recommendation. In the Community Recreation Arts Appendix, you'll notice that there was a datum that was used as a baseline to understand what exactly our park acreage need is and what we need to do to get to that point. We utilize the county average just as a baseline to understand where our numbers sit. To meet the county average, we need an additional 134 park acres on top of our 144. 5-year projected population growth, we will need an additional 165 acres. Now, if we utilize standard planning principles of 5 park acres per 1,000, we will need, I'll look at this one, 292 additional acres and an additional 338 acres with a 5-year projection. Now, my recommendation, based on all these considerations, is that we want to target a number beyond the foreseeable future that aligns with the city's priorities and initiatives. Recommendation is to exceed the average because I don't think in the history of Santa Monica we've ever felt that we are average. We want to look beyond the foreseeable future and understand that as we move forward in the next 20, 25 years, we want to be able to meet that average and exceed it and find opportunities to do so. So what does this all mean? It means that our responsibility doesn't end in 2025. We need to monitor recreation and art program trends. We need to be an advocate for the vision plan and amplify the relationship between community and the environment so improvements complement and align with adopted sustainability initiatives. So how to realize this vision? The overall vision is set up in this structure. 8 principles are validated by 5 strategies, and those principles are reinforced by 32 overall actions. Each of those actions have supporting recommendations to achieve those actions. The 8 principles are nourish existing parks and park facilities, expand new parkland and open space, raise new park facilities, ideate the Santa Monica State Beach, connect open space in the community, gather recreation and arts programming, sustain parks and facilities sustainability and maintenance, and support funding and meaningful partnerships. Each chapter of these principles is validated by the 5 strategies of strengthening access to parks, facilities, and the beach, rethinking streets with park potential, fostering social interaction, optimizing existing parks and beach experiences, and create new parkland. At a quick glance, I don't expect you to zoom in on this, but these are the 8 overall principles and the 32 supporting actions. Excuse me. What you're seeing on the right is generally how the actions chapter 3 is set up. The overall action is supported by a narrative. Underneath that narrative are all the supporting recommendations. Those are actionable items that we will look towards to implement over the next 20, 25 years, establishing accountability on staff's end to continue the conversation about our parks and how we are positioning ourselves to take advantage of any partnerships or funding opportunities or just general planning principles as it comes to park and open space integration within our city. Just at a glance, I pulled some of those actions out just for quick discussion today. Action 7.1, build upon sustainability initiatives. That narrative, Santa Monica's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan lays out a framework for enhancing the city's resilience to climate change through 4 sectors: climate-ready community, water self-sufficiency, coastal flooding preparedness, and low-carbon food and ecosystems. This plan's ability to complement actions outlined in the CAP and Sustainable City Plan demonstrate the city's commitment to preventing harm to the natural environment and human health and benefiting social and economic well-being of the community. Action 1.2.2, expand and enhance Memorial Park by 2.9 acres in accordance with the master plan conceptual layout. Action 2.1.5, conduct feasibility studies to cap sections of the I-10 freeway as the land use and circulation element recommends. Action 2.1.14, evaluate project scope against the sustainability administrative instruction. Action 5.1.4, study the feasibility of establishing a minimum of 1 street segment within each neighborhood as a park street, removing vehicular traffic, integrating landscape and amenities. Action 2.2.2, evaluate the 12-acre airport park expansion project alongside airport conversion project to prioritize possible design and implementation efficiencies. And Action 7.4, create a landscape vision plan. This is something that takes this plan and does a little bit more digging into the detail. Landscape vision plans are typically design guidelines for how we work with our park system. We don't have one of these currently. We have a maintenance and operations performance standards with Public Landscape Division, but we don't have a tool to relay a lot of the information that exists within the Public Landscape Division to our architects, consultants, and those who are invited to participate in the design of our city. This will help dig in a little bit more into the details. What kind of materials do we like to use? What kind of furnishings are appropriate? What kind of strategies we want to utilize to address the priorities of accessibility? All those details will be part of that plan. Another important consideration that we took into this plan has to do with the 23-24 Parks Condition Assessment. That assessment looked at all 30 of our parks and their facilities to understand the estimated costs associated with the maintenance of those facilities. We then, with interdepartmental collaboration, established 5, 10, and 20-year work plans. With regard to the 5-year work plan, we're looking at about a $42 million investment. 10-year work plan, $30 million. 20-year work plan, $24 million. These numbers can become exponential if we're not addressing them within their work plan. Items that aren't addressed in the 5-year work plan get carried over to the 10-year work plan, and that 30 number goes up even more. So we want to be mindful that we want to be able to dedicate the right amount of funding to take care of our parks, especially as our city grows. Because what we have been finding out is that the life cycle of our amenities is responding in concert to the growth of our city. Things that used to last 20 years are now lasting about 15 years because they're just being overused. So we want to make sure that we're not only considerate of adding new parks, but maintaining the parks we already have. So what's next? We want to utilize this vision to help define projects, and we want to reference the vision in establishing their missions. We want to validate the project process utilizing this vision and implement the project in order to validate the outcome and operations and report and establish a new benchmark for parks and open space projects. I mentioned the foreseeable future. Again, Memorial Park expansion is in schematic design with the intent to present that design to council in December. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the airport conversion project. Both of these projects are in our site. We are participating in them now. And again, when it comes down to what that park acreage number is, these are two projects that get us closer to that average. If you recall, to just meet the county average of 3.3, we need additional 134 acres. The airport site in of itself is 192 total acres. So if we look at these projects within our foreseeable future, so is that county average. We want to look beyond that to get to a goal that keeps us moving and keeps us advancing our park network. Again, city has habitat goals to enable open space to grow with the city, to position the city to respond quickly and responsibly to opportunities that enhance our parks, support water self-sufficiency, zero waste, and carbon neutrality, maintain open dialogue with the community about nature advocacy, and reaffirm the Sustainable Rights Ordinance. I will be presenting, this has changed since this morning actually. I will be going to the Airport Commission next week, followed by the Arts Commission and Santa Monica Aquatics Advisory Committee in October with presenting this document in October 28th City Council meeting. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this? No. I think we move towards open discussion. Commissioner Landris.
Yeah, I have a few things. So thank you for this. And I appreciate also the suggestions on how to read and all the things. I just want to ask a few questions. So inspired by the circular economy meeting yesterday, where in the report do we show the contribution that the park's vision could make to achieving carbon neutrality or even the good carbon positivity by our deadlines?
We speak specifically to those 4 items, and maybe this gets your question, those 4 items of the CAP within Chapter 7. Within that, we provide recommendations on how to achieve those particular 4 priorities outlined in the CAP. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I'm looking at like in 7.1. I feel like it would be helpful to show more directly, if we do this, we will accelerate our progress toward this goal by this date, right? To make the tie, because I saw, right, 7.1 says build on sustainability initiatives, and I think that's very helpful, but understanding, you say, just to give an example, right, the Urban Forest Master Plan targets a 5% increase in urban tree canopy every 10 years. Well, how does that get us there? So what in the Parks Plan, how can we tie these together? Can we show that implementing A leads to achieving B? That's my question is, how might we figure out a way to do that? So that's more a rhetorical question, I guess. My second question is, having looked at the public comment, we got a lot of letters about artificial turf. Are you taking a position on that in the report?
No. One clarification I do want to add is that when this report began, the dialogue on turf versus grass hadn't elevated to the level it is now, and also the preferred nomenclature wasn't clarified yet. So, for example, the park inventory along the top column, it notes areas with 10,000 square feet or more of turf turf was meant to be grass.
Got
There's
it.
only one location on page 97 where the two turf and grass are next to each other, which we are in the process of clarifying throughout the document. There are only two park amenities within our network that utilize artificial turf, which is historic Belmar Field and Airport Field. Everything else is grass. But with regards to your question about whether or not this plan is taking position, currently the way it's drafted, it does not. But the comments that we have been hearing is that the community wants it to.
Okay. And
that topic will be going to the Rec and Parks Commission next Thursday with there's a little bit more things happening in the next week and a half to get to that point.
Yeah. And I thought this was a valuable point in the letter where I guess there was some SMMUSD, someone cited that Carrie Upton had noted that the total life cycle cost of grass was not more than the total life cycle cost of turf, and obviously had all the advantages of grass. I'm curious, in your financial modeling, are you modeling life cycle costs or just upfront costs?
Oh, no, we're in the internal working group associated with this topic. We're analyzing everything. It's not just the upfront costs. Because there's been a lot of conversation about it's cheaper, it's more expensive, like artificial turf is more expensive upfront, but it's less expensive long term. But then we're needing to understand, like, well, it does need maintenance, number one. Number two is there a ability to cancel out that cost differential if we are providing enough maintenance on natural grass to maintain the playability, because it also comes down to playability. So we want to make sure that it's long-term maintenance, it's long-term playability against those years when we would get hit with those high dollar amounts, and how those numbers might cancel out and lead to a decision.
I have to say I shy away from anything that could increase our unknown liabilities, and we don't know what the ultimate liabilities are going to be on artificial turf down the line. Two more questions. I appreciated your comments about, sort of thinking about community gardens, and as part of as part of this vision, and also the downtown pops as part of this vision. Is there an opportunity for, particularly for us as we think about zoning and development standards, to encourage these in new housing and other building production?
That's a really great idea.
Right.
In speaking with Teague and the Community Garden Advisory Committee, they gave me a lot of different recommendations on all of the nooks and crannies that we can tap into. I don't recall that being one of them.
Okay.
But I can see it being something that people are really gravitated to.
I would love to see if there's a way that we could give credit I don't know if there's a way to do it, but giving open space credit to sort of community gardens, maybe rooftop, maybe ground level, maybe somewhere in the middle, that are, can be enjoyed by everyone, even if people are managing their own little spots. And then my last question is sort of a more sensitive one. I think reading the community needs assessment and the concerns of the people who are not, who's not using the park, what are the concerns about the park, where are the high levels of dissatisfaction. Looking at Action 1.1, which is really the first thing you kind of come across when you're reading this report, and then looking at Action 1.4, have you given any consideration to leading with public safety? It is both the #1 area of dissatisfaction in the survey among people who are reluctant to engage in parks. It's part of the conversation, and not to put too fine a point on it, but the capital costs for addressing public safety seem to be significantly lower than the capital costs of improving amenities. And if we're trying it in the current environment, it strikes me that building support for the plan, you might want to think about leading with the safety and then going on to the next stuff, particularly in view of council priorities and, our budget capacity.
That's a really great comment, and I think from the point of view that one of the things that are holding the community back from taking full advantage of our parks and open spaces is that element of safety. So if we can, again, lead with that and just get that out the door as like that's a priority, and then it kind of leads into the rest, it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. I have thoughts to sort of say, but those are my 4 questions.
Commissioner Fresco.
Thank you for the lovely document. And nice to meet you. I had, we're going to have a private conversation about history, yeah. So I won't bore you all with the stories. I was kind of curious because you did refer to Woodlawn Cemetery as part of the park system, and I just wanted to understand what is meant by that. I mean, it's just green, is that why?
Yes, so the reason it's mentioned is because as part of the county-wide assessment, there is a parks portal that kind of logs all open spaces. We have an obligation as part of our Measure A grant funding to update like any acreage changes or any improvements that happen within these open spaces. Within that portal, Woodlawn Cemetery is part of that inventory because it is open.
I see. Okay.
And it's not included in the overall calculation. It is pulled out just to acknowledge that there is a relationship between park open space and this other thing that is a more
Also green.
and it's also like linked to
Okay.
how we measure.
Thank you. I commented on things in the beginning, and then they may come up again when I talk more about specific actions. But there was overall, in the beginning, there was a reference to the ideas of social justice, and I didn't see a lot of actions related to social justice, but I have some ideas. So I thought you'll hear them. The first one that came to mind is Shader Park, which is our tiniest park in the city. And Shader, who it was named for, it was probably the most racist person in the history of the city. I don't know, maybe. So I would certainly consider renaming that park. So even though it's very small, I don't like to see his name there. Oh yeah, and I just wanted to comment on the turf versus grass concept. And I think this is like a really important idea for all of us planners and thinkers about city planning, because when turf first came up, it came up because it was the answer to a horrible drought situation we were in, and we were just trying to do anything to solve the drought, and the long-term impacts of the solution almost didn't seem to matter anymore. And I think we always have a tendency to do that with the problem of the day, and I just want to remind us all to remember to always think holistically about all of our problems, including housing and the airport and everything else. All of these things have to fit holistically into the long-term functionality of our city. So that's just a little lesson learned about that. You note in chapter 3 that there are many parks in the city that have historic significance in various ways. Palisades Park is a landmark. Bay Street Park is part of a National Register designation. And there are 2 other parks that I can think of that I think could possibly qualify as landmarks, and we might want to consider, in order to preserve that heritage in our parks, a program that would waive nomination and other fees related to landmark designation, so that it's possible to generate applications from the community for those. So that was one idea.
What were the two parks you had in mind?
Douglas and Hotchkiss.
I was right on one of them. I knew Hotchkiss was going to be on the list. Okay.
No, Douglas Park is, I mean, both of them have really strong New Deal connection. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll tell you the stories later. During our extreme drought emergency, we did have a lot of developments that were in a DA. We don't do DAs anymore, but back when we did, there were a lot of public courts that were like public spaces, those privately owned things, and they're all concrete. And we talk a lot about greening, and as we move forward in our housing element and we break through with these, get shovels in the ground on these 4,000 units, we're going to be paving over more and more of our open space. And so thinking about our open spaces as being permeable is going to become increasingly important. So when we talk about greening, to remember it's not only trees up above, but the ground underneath, just as a general idea. Dirt is important, is what I wrote. Also noting, just as another little thing about landmarks, that you did note somewhere that you thought that the Landmarks Commission might be able to have purview, but they can't have purview over anything unless it's actually a landmark. That's just not how the law works. So, sorry. So then later on, so I was curious about how we're going to negotiate the idea that if parcels become available that the city could purchase for parkland and there's housing potential on that parcel, how we weigh the balance and make the choice and where we're going to go. That's a pretty tough choice in this climate, and it just makes the idea of growing our park inventory that much harder. So that's something to just have eyes wide open. I don't know if there's a way to think about how we can make those choices in the future, if there's some way to decide. But so one of the, there was a discussion, this is a part of Action 2. You talk about using parkway medians like San Vicente, and I think you also mentioned 4th Street, which, by the way, is another WPA landscape, but whatever.
What about Olympic?
Yes, what about Olympic? Olympic, that is a huge, gets into our whole social justice thing. Olympic Boulevard is right next to the areas that were basically destroyed by the freeway. And of course, it's still near other neighborhoods that are very park lacking, even though it is across the freeway from them, but hopefully we can solve some of that. And it would be a great place for community gardens. There's lots of parking there.
It wasn't in there?
No.
Okay. That must have been an error, because we had a lot of conversations about all the different things we could put in Olympic. So
yeah, there is actually a little community garden there, like on 18th Street or something. There's something going on there.
Habitat area.
The native habitat area.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. So there's just a lot of potential, and also the idea of like using those parkways to mix, what did you call them? Public orchards, community, but the idea of just like food-bearing trees in public spaces that, using parkways for that amid, running and bicycle tracks, because we do have those 3 major streets that have those parkways. And so Olympic, San Vicente, and 4th Street. So those are all things that could be combined in different ways that make them really valuable space. So that's the trees thing. So in terms of freeway capping, the Luce, as I understand it, recommends freeway capping near 4th Street, which is the one part of the freeway that is actually a natural gully that we didn't dig out and ruin people's lives. And there's 7,000 feet of freeway that was dug out between 7th Street and the East City limit that was excavated for the freeway and displaced all of those people. So if we're going to talk about freeway capping, that would be a place where we could actually restore connection with the community that's up there that was disconnected from their commercial center, which was on Olympic Boulevard. And all those businesses, as you can see, are gone because of that disconnection, and so forth. So that is another social justice suggestion. You talked a few times in the report about a new aquatic center, and I just think it should be named for George Freeth. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was the guy who basically brought surfing from Hawaii to California at the turn of the century, and he was a really cool guy and died at a very young age of the Spanish flu, which was very unfortunate, but he has a great story, and we should recognize him. So name our aquatic center for him. Okay, I go back on Olympic again, medians, orchards, I'm almost there, guys. Is there a way, maybe, I talked earlier about the impervious surfaces that are coming in our future. Maybe there's a way we can actually monitor how much coverage we're getting and making sure that we're maintaining things. I made a note with exclamation points about the idea of sponsorships, because boy, has Santa Monica changed. And the last thing is the idea we talk about making parks feel safer and look more beautiful, and removing chain link fences is a really great way to deal with both of these ideas. Chain link fence is often considered, people in their minds, they associate it with blight. It's, I can think like Crescent Bay Park, the one on the National Register that's not a landmark, has some pretty nasty chain link fence.
Ones at the top of the ridge.
Yeah, just because, it's like lawsuit prevention fence, and that's not pretty. So, they could do better. And, there are other weird odd little spots around various parks that have unsightly chain link that we don't need. So those were my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Commissioner Chaco.
Thank you. Firstly, I just want to applaud staff on a very timely vision and also a very comprehensive approach to dealing with a complex situation where acquiring parks is not, as a sort of a traditional solution, is not that viable anymore. And I think the plan is full of promise in terms of identifying avenues to explore. I do have a couple of questions, maybe not as many as Commissioner Fresco, but I'll start with maybe piggybacking on one that Commissioner Fresco mentioned regarding that trade-off between housing and open space. That's something that intrigues me, and I'm curious whether part of this effort is actually exploring the potential for coordination, collaboration with the housing dilemma that we have, potentially in terms of maybe finding opportunities where both can be accomplished, given that the housing generates a need for open space and open space enhances housing, and the two together can actually get more than the sum of the parts. So I'm just curious about that. Given the timing, I mean, we're maybe a little bit more than halfway through the RHNA cycle.
Yes. I mean, I personally would love it. I come from a background that I was a landscape designer and at a landscape architecture firm, and we did a lot of multifamily housing projects. Listening to the conversation earlier this evening, the thought of more development sooner was intriguing because there is park impact fee associated with that. But at the same time, you balance that with you have the money to invest in parks, but we don't have the land to do so, which is why we're in the process of writing an RFP for a new Nexus study to help us maybe figure out ways to. Right now, the way the fee is written is that we use it for acquisition and expansion only, not improvements. So considering how we can maybe based on the fact that we don't have as many opportunities to grow and expand, and we're becoming limited on space, if there's a way to roll in improvements because we are a landlocked city and our opportunities are in the foreseeable future. So if we can find a way to get more funding through that avenue to improve our parks, to maybe elevate them to a level that can accommodate more amenities and serve a larger population, that would be ideal.
And I just add to that, I mean, that sounds great, but I just add to that I think particular attention to the areas that are of high need or very high need, where it's particularly challenging, I guess, to find opportunities, but there are potentially sites, even though they may be small sites, parking lots, things like that,
we did receive a lot of comment about those particular areas from those particular neighborhoods, and thinking about how they acknowledge that there isn't a lot of opportunities to acquire new land in those areas, but there is opportunity to really invest in the network, the pedestrian network within those areas, which is, I believe it was this commission where we heard the recommendation of creating park streets or finding segments of streets to do that. That was also something we heard in those outreach meetings, to really think about those opportunities, because they have those particular neighborhoods have great walking loops, urban trail systems. They know, like, if I walk this way, I walk a mile. But if we can invest in those other tactics to kind of elevate those, that would be another avenue to investigate, which is why studying and the feasibility of those is going to be its own endeavor in terms of understanding where those opportunities exist, and then having the conversations with the neighborhood to understand if that's something they actually want to take advantage of. Because there is, of course, I don't live there. Maybe many of you don't live there, but we don't understand what their conditions are in those neighborhoods. It might create more problems. It might actually create solutions to problems. So having those conversations is going to be critical.
Great. Well, in the interest of time, I think I just have one more question. There was one action that caught my interest. I think it was action 2.2.7 that referred to the Promenade 3.0 plan.
Yes.
And I was curious to hear just a little bit more about that.
So, yes, it is.
It was stunning.
Yes, it was a very, very robust and expensive endeavor of a vision for renovation to the promenade. And so there are a lot of great ideas in there. And we want to be able to, we already have been, as part of the economic recovery efforts with the public works side of things was charged with, was looking at that and saying, what elements of this 3.0 plan can we start to utilize now that isn't ripping up the street and repaving or adding more of X, Y, and Z that costs a lot of money, but we look at that plan as these are the areas where have been highlighted as the best program areas. Can we kind of focus our area of intention on that and utilize that plan to help guide some of those tactical urbanism types of interventions?
So this plan is actually available somewhere online?
Yes.
It is. Okay, great.
Okay. Commissioner Wasserman.
Do you want questions now, comments later? Both? Don't care.
This is just open discussion.
Yeah, a few questions about I guess I'm stuck on the acreage goal. First, this metric has its own problems, but how do we compare sort of population weighted distance to a park?
How do we compare?
How do we compare to national averages, national recommendations?
Oh, I could utilize an example of within our area, like West LA, for example. Like our population is about 72% of the population is within like a quarter-mile walk to the park, whereas like Venice, Palms, Mar Vista, they're much more significantly larger distances. So their percentage goes down to I think like 20%. But average-wise, I can dig into that a little bit more to give you some comps.
Yeah, I mean, I just bring it up because the acreage, like, you know, I used to live by Griffith Park. It's great. I love that it's so big. The additional acreage has less and less marginal benefit to people, just, because there's only so many people who are close enough to access it. I mean, and then, obviously if you just have a tiny pocket park, that's not the same as a big park, so it has to be something in between. But the sort of focus on acreage gives me pause, also just because of so doing some mental math here, we have 140-something acres of park, the airport adds 190. The goal, the common planning standard here of 5, I don't know how we get there, even in a billion-trillion-dollar vision. Capping every acre of the 5, I mapped this out earlier, is 55 acres. So we'd still need 60, 70 more acres, even if we capped, or of the 10, if we capped over the whole 10. If we have a high acre threshold, I mean, to the points that Nina and Pierre raised, what is that saying when we have a parcel? If we recommend, say, 5 acres per 1,000 people, will this plan then be used to say this is one thing we should weigh in deciding what to do with that parcel?
Yes, because when let me take. So when we want to determine our overall need, there will be a threshold. Our population will only grow, so will grow to a maximum, I hope, and not grow any more beyond that. But there will be a correlating number to reach to meet that need. So, for example, the community recreation needs assessment also noted in examples of the types of amenities we have. We have 6 rectangular fields that we utilize for various sports and whatnot. There's a recommendation based on the National Rec and Parks Association recommendations of what we need to meet. So that being said, there are a number of fields, baseball fields, softball fields, et cetera, that we need more of to meet the need. So as our city continues to grow, those numbers will continue to go up, which has a correlating acreage associated with them. So we also want to be able to have a number that helps us prioritize our open spaces. So when we have the discussions about balancing more housing versus open space, we understand that there is a baseline number that we need to meet an average within our region, but also that there's a number that we want to get beyond that so that we can provide a level of service that is comparable to our growth. Does that help answer?
Yes. I mean, well, one, growth. We've been at 90,000 people for decades. But I don't know. I struggle with setting an acre threshold in a document like this that considers parks in quite extensive detail, but then doesn't, for good reason, consider all the other uses of the land. And then if we're saying in isolation, okay, we want to essentially more than double our current parks acreage in this parks document, then that will be used in other contexts to say, hey, we agreed as a city that we need to do this, so we should use this land as a park parcel over a housing parcel over a commercial parcel, whatever. I feel uncomfortable making that determination in isolation when just talking about parks without consideration of the other uses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I have here, off that topic for a second. The turf discussion, I'll just make the comment that, yeah, got a lot of comments. I also agree that I would hope that this plan could just have a blanket recommendation against new turf and ideally against about replacing existing artificial turf. The health, safety, economic consequences seem pretty clear to me. I was just looking at the Memorial Park EIR, which calls for new synthetic turf, which is not great to see this coming out, as we have this vision plan. And I don't know if it's strictly not in accord with the document here, but it seems like there's conflict here. And then finally, I guess what I wanted to maybe highlight, I don't know if it would go in the document, but is if we're blue skying big vision, not just like play streets, closing the streets, that's great, but also just reclaiming asphalt, tearing out asphalt. The State Street project in New Haven is one that I think of where they had a divided road like San Vicente, say, comparable, and they took out half of it. It is returning to park green land. I think maybe they're building housing on it, part of it too, but like, you know, that is far more costly, but if we're thinking big picture here, like what we can repurpose our pavement space in addition to capping the freeway as well. So I just raised that for consideration.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you for a great presentation. I just wanted to, a lot has been said, so I don't want to reiterate, but can you define for me when you say, what do you mean by the city is habitat? Can you define what you mean by habitat and habitat for whom? Just birds, animals, bugs, butterflies? and if it is, that's what I would love to see. So how do you define habitat?
Exactly that.
Okay.
It's increasing biodiversity and really looking at how we can utilize our parks as part of the solution to addressing carbon neutrality, zero waste, water self-sufficiency.
Okay.
Utilizing it utilizing our parks as a tool and taking advantage of the fact that they have the capacity to, take on some strategies.
So just natural habitat, native species type habitat.
Correct.
Okay. I'll warn you that a lot of people think that looks like weeds. And weeds are, weeds might not look nice to people who are used to nice green lawns, but natural habitat is actually vital to our ecosystem. And so I want to just have you guys really lean into that.
Yes, and that's something in particular that so when I came on board in April of 24, it was about 2 weeks prior to the first community outreach associated with Douglas Park Playground reconstruction. That particular process taught us a lot about this outreach process and education, not only on the project, but on like the materials being used and how they're used and the opportunities available to essentially kind of, lack of a better phrase, manipulate the materials to our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has opened up opportunity to really think about how we utilize public outreach in terms of more education, especially with plants and natives. It came up in our sustainability meeting this past Monday about utilizing the opportunity to educate the community and make them aware of like what this plant looks like day one, what it's going to look like, what it does, and like what kind of habitat it can create, so that people understand that we sort of manage the expectation so that they know that at any given time, for example, a native grass will be sheared back, knowing that it will grow back, but it might not look the best some part of the year.
I'm sure a lot of people have driven down Olympic and have seen that one part on the median and thought that the city just stopped mowing the lawn. And I think there is an education component that we really need to have as part of this. And then you also talk about parks and open space. How do you, open space is defined as what? Is that where we get into the discussion about the Olivet Reservoir and Woodlawn and the Santa Monica Beach?
Yeah, so it's mostly those public regional, like the promenades and open space. Yes, Mount Olivet's an open space. The areas that aren't typically looked at as being true park spaces that have amenities to utilize. But if we take Woodlawn as an example, it's all lawn on top of a reservoir. And so is there opportunity to look at? I know we've already had the conversation about like within its lifespan, its lifespan is about to the end of probably this vision plan, but looking at, is there ways to, if we can't utilize it as a park, is there ways to utilize it as areas for native plantings?
What I like about the combination of that is I like the idea of the city looking at all of its open space as potential habitat. And, that would mean letting parts of Woodlawn or the Mount Olivet Reservoir return to a more natural state. And I know even within Woodlawn Cemetery, there's a section that is allowed to go back to a more natural state. And I would encourage the city to find as many ways as possible to look at its parks and open space, but even like, you know, its parks where right now we just have grass growing. Are there areas, and there's vast areas that we could take that grass out and have it return to a more natural habitat? Because grass is not really habitat. Grass is actually, and you know, it's a little bit better than asphalt, but not much. Okay. I really appreciate and thank you for keeping your streets as parks concept alive in this. I think that I liked what you said about removing vehicle access from some of these streets, but I think that if you do get pushback, I think there's ways to thoughtfully integrate cars that so people can go into their driveways, and you know, those residents still have access while still keeping that street safe, walkable, bikeable, in a lot of areas to remove asphalt on those streets to let, you know, plants grow back. I did want to touch on real quickly the medians. I'm glad Commissioner Fresco brought this up on San Vicente, 4th Street, and Olympic. Those are underutilized park spaces. And first of all, I live on San Vicente, so I have firsthand experience on this. You can't, like, building a nice park on the median of San Vicente, it doesn't work unless you've done the traffic calming around it. And that's one thing that I wish the city manager was able to give his remarks, because I get the sense that we're trying to take down silos within the city. So you're working on parks, but circulation is working on streets, and then public safety is the police are sending, you know, an officer on San Vicente to, catch speeders. But like, it's all together. So if you're gonna look at, Olympic or San Vicente as potential park areas, we need to do something to take down the lanes from 2 to 1 and reclaim some of this space for parkland while also calming traffic. Nobody feels safe running on these medians, and Olympic is just as bad. I spent a lot of time on Olympic as well at Memorial Park. And there are people going, as with San Vicente, 50 to 60 miles an hour pretty frequently on those streets. So it all needs to be cohesive and work together. Those medians and like any other kind of grass area could be returned to a more natural habitat if that's the city's intent. And I think probably over the long term, it's a lower cost option, but will probably cost a lot more at the front end. But anyways, that's all I have. I really thank you for a really good, very thorough presentation. Thank you. And Commissioner Landris, anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple of, one thing I just want to note from, in terms of finding alternatives for open space. Just today's Daily Press talks about this new Upward Bound House urban farm, which came from donated space from a real estate development firm. So you can read about that in the Daily Press. It just happened to be today. I have some specific comments. I think I found the section on partnerships and We Are Santa Monica kind of painful to read, and would love there to be fewer words and a focus on streamlining. We don't need our own park fund. City of Los Angeles has a Parks Foundation. County of Los Angeles has a Parks Foundation. I think we're a small enough city that we don't need our own standalone Parks Foundation. But there's the way that is written is not something I would ever show a potential philanthropic partner. We're going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and then we're going to submit this for this approval. No, we have the We Are Santa Monica Fund. We have a vehicle for securing philanthropic support for our parks. That is great. Let's use it. Like, think about who's going to look at that page and how somebody could go out and actually see we have philanthropic partnerships in our plan. And similarly, and Commissioner Fresco alluded to this in terms of let's find more partnerships, I think the whole notion of we want to do more with our parks, we want to add these amenities, we want to add these programs, we want to get the word out more, then we probably need to streamline the way that we let people do stuff in our parks. And if we don't have money, but there are people out there who are willing to spend money to activate our parks, then I think, and this goes back to the holistic thinking, and it goes back to the way in which we envision the way we do this work, then I think the section on those partnerships, again, needs to focus on making it really easy for that to happen. We obviously want to collect fees from people who are doing private business in our parks, right? Like, you know, the exercise classes, things like that. But at the same time, for people who are wanting to open it up to the public, they're wanting to support populations that are priority populations for us, how can we simplify, and make it as easy as possible, and then amplify that and say, hey, look what's happening in Santa Monica parks. And then the last thing is just pointing out that something that didn't exist, I don't believe, when did we pass this? I believe it was 2020, but Measure W literally taxes impermeable surfaces. And everything that we're talking about in terms of encouraging permeability, you can do permeable bike paths now, right? What if we imagined like the city as a park, go back to your point about like 1997, what can we permeate? Like take the whole city, right? This goes back to my point about the cap, right? And how we're driving that. If the whole, let's just permeate where we can permeate. Reimagine what it means to be a park and think about ways that we can, that's something we can encourage developers to do, right? In our development standards to minimize, they'll pay lower taxes, right? We'll get more permeable ground space, which advances the kind of natural development that you were talking about, Chair. So those are my additional comments. And
no, I want to, I do have a love of permeable ground cover. I think not a lot of people do. Okay, I say we wrap up this discussion if we could.
One thing I want to say.
Okay.
Have you ever been walked down Commonwealth Avenue in Boston?
I don't think so.
It's a park with tons of traffic with Boston drivers on either side, and it's a great park.
Yeah.
So, just had to put that out there.
We could have a great jogging path from 26 in San Vicente all the way around along the Palisades Park, and then back up. We could have a really great jogging path network, and then up Olympic potentially, and yeah, because we're not. I mean, to Jacob's point, we have 144 acres. Just to get to the county average, we'd have to double the amount of parks, and that's just not going to happen. And the airport park is still a twinkle in everyone's eye. We're going to have to be creative in how we bring recreational kind of park-like activities to Santa Monica. And so it's going to be about activating our kind of passive open space for habitat, and it's going to have to be through letting people use our streets for something other than automobile traffic or driving cars as fast as we can. So we just have to be creative, and I think this plan incorporates that.
Is there a way to do that? I'm just thinking about I'm just imagining San Vicente having, right, like one side of the median is now just a bike and walk lane, and the other side of the median, the other side of the median is now a two-way street or something. But is there a way to do that so that it also prevents fire? I mean, you'll deal with that on October 15th with local hazard mitigation, but I just wonder if there's a way that that can be both hardening, that part of Santa Monica relative to fire, but also permeating, creating permeable ground.
Good question.
Just a
I
thought.
I like your idea. All right, can I get a vote to close off this study session on item 8A? I'm just going to stop it then.
You're the
Okay.
boss, baby.
Okay, now we're moving on to,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Written communication, has there been any written communication that we need to discuss that was in an action item? Okay. Okay, we have now 14A. Does transit-oriented development need the transit? Commissioner Wasserman?
I don't need to keep you here, but it's a great 5-page article. Essentially, you get a lot of the benefits of transit-oriented development just by having dense development with low parking. You don't necessarily need rail, so something to think about.
Thank you. Okay.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. That was really good. Okay, I think we're ready for adjournment. Can I, how do we adjourn again? Do we need to take a vote? Just adjourn? Okay.
You can just adjourn.
Okay.
You're done.
We are hereby adjourned at 8:46 PM.
Thank you.
Well done.